All right, what's going on, everybody? We are here. We are live. Hopefully, you all can see and hear me clearly on this election day. As opposed to waiting for the stream to fill up with viewers, I'm just going to get straight to the point with this video so that I can keep this live as short as possible, because what I want to do today is I want to go over a few things that I've gone over plenty of times before on this channel. But the purpose of this particular video is really more so in order for you, my subscribers, to pass this on to your relatives and to your friends that still may be on the fence as it pertains to who to vote for, and especially when it comes down to holding the vote, as most of us are going to do. Now, let's get into it. As far as my position is concerned, and most of you know this already, I will not be participating in this election. I will not be voting for Joe Biden or Donald Trump. I did go out and vote for the propositions and measures because that is important as far as the local stuff is concerned. But as it pertains to the president of the United States, I will not be supporting either one of them. The reason I won't support either one of them is because neither one of them support reparations for the descendants of American slavery, nor do they support or have a comprehensive Black agenda that is exclusively for Black Americans. Because of that, I will not be participating in this election. Now, one of the things that people like to say and leave in my comment section, right, when I talk about how I will not be voting for the president of the United States, is people will say, well, what good do you believe that's going to do? What do you think is going to do to just allow Donald Trump to just get back into office? Well, number one, first and foremost, the most important thing that it's going to do is that it shows the Democrats and the Republicans, but more specifically the Democrats, that if you do not come at us correctly with the proper respect that Black Americans are deserved, because we always give you the supermajority to get you into office, which is something that you don't deserve. But if you want our respect and you want to continue to get that vote, you're going to have to do something that is exclusively for us, not for minorities, people of color, marginalized groups, but for Black Americans, the same way you make it a point to prioritize other groups over us by giving them exclusive legislation that is specifically for them that we can't touch. But when it comes to us, all of a sudden, it's a community pot. Everybody can stick their hands in whatever your so-called fake Black agenda is. All right. So people always come to me and they tell me, what do you think that's going to accomplish? Well, having Trump in office for another 4 more years will, at worst, accomplish the same thing that it would accomplish if we just blindly vote Democrat once again without getting anything in return, which is nothing. You see, like I always say, and like I always talk about, from 1964 to now, we consistently give the Democratic Party a supermajority just to get nothing in return. But that's a mistake. I've been always saying we get nothing in return. That isn't true. What we do get in return is the racial wealth gap expanding and ballooning out of control. What we have got in return is your incarceration rate expanding and ballooning out of control. What we have got in return is, as this article states, the median wealth of Black Americans will fall to zero by 2053, warns new report. That's what we've gotten in return for consistently voting Democrat, giving them a supermajority without expecting anything in return, but assuming that they're going to do the right thing by us, which they never do. So when you're asking me, what do you believe that's going to accomplish by not voting? What do you think Donald Trump is going to give you? He's going to give us exactly what the Democrats have been giving us since 1964. People always talking about we got to hold the Democrats accountable. You can't hold anybody accountable. That is such an overblown, overrated statement. You can't hold a politician accountable. Once he gets into office, they're going to do what they're going to do. And once the laws are set in stone, for the most part, there's nothing you can do about it. The only way that you hold the Democrats accountable in this election is by making sure that they don't win. That's the only way. That's the only way. Because what they'll continue to do, as I stated earlier, is that they'll continue to give you these rising tide lift all ship policies that they know don't work. And what that always turns into is this. That's what it always turns into. Look at good old Uncle Sam right there. I have set aside this cake specifically for you minorities. And you can replace minorities with people of color, minorities, and marginalized groups. Doesn't matter what you call it. Doesn't matter what term you use. It's all the same. At the end of the day, when you vote the Democrats in office, what you get is that photo sitting right in front of you. Before I take it off the screen too quickly, I'm going to let you look at that for a minute. I'm going to give you a good 10 seconds just to stare at this photo, because this has been the relationship between Black Americans and the Democratic Party since 1964. I don't want to hear anybody arguing with me and talking to me about the Republicans and Donald Trump, because the difference between the Republicans and Donald Trump is that at least when it comes to the Republicans, and that's the reason that I respect them, it doesn't mean that I like them, but I respect them. The reason that I respect them is due to the fact that they will tell you who they are and what they're about, and you can either get with it or you can't. When it comes to the Democratic Party, they consistently lie to us, tell us the things that they think we want to hear, play games with us by way of pretending to like hip hop and paying hip hop artists to come to their events like 2 Chainz and say all type of foolishness. They pretend to be our friends, but when we get them in office, they consistently stab us in the back. And one of the people who has stabbed us in the back the most over the past 40 some odd years is your boy Joe Biden. Joe Biden, for the last 40 some odd years, has made it a point to consistently not just author, but put into law. The bills actually get passed, put into law, anti-Black legislation by the way of criminal justice. These bills that he's put out consistently since 1976 has disproportionately locked up Black folks at an alarming, ridiculous rate. One of the funniest things and craziest things that you see in this election, excuse me, and this is kind of part 2 now. We're moving on to the next phase of what I want to talk about. In these debates and throughout this election, what they're consistently talking about with us is mass incarceration, mass incarceration, mass incarceration. Everybody's talking about mass incarceration, right? Nobody's talking about reparations. Nobody's talking about closing the racial wealth gap, but they'll speak to you to death about mass incarceration. But the fact of the matter is that without Joe Biden, there is no mass incarceration. You see how they create the problem and then sell you the solution? Mass incarceration wouldn't even exist without Joe Biden. The need for criminal justice reform wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for Joe Biden. This is a man who has consistently, throughout the years, pounded on his chest proudly about the fact that every bill, minor and major, as far as criminal justice bills are concerned, that have been passed, has always had his name on it.
I hope this crime bill, when it passes, the Biden-Hatch crime bill, as it becomes law, God willing, I hope that we will have ended once and for all this notion that is a hangover from the 60s, that somehow Democrats are weak on crime and Democratic presidents are weak on crime and Republicans are tough on crime. The truth is, every major crime bill since 1976 that's come out of this Congress, every minor crime bill has had the name of the Democratic senator from the state of Delaware, Joe Biden, on that bill.
There literally is no criminal justice system to reform if there was no Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the reason that everyone's talking about criminal justice reform and mass incarceration. When it came to his, I believe it's the 94 crime bill, he was so proud of how thorough that bill was as it pertains to being able to lock brothers away, that he arrogantly stated that this bill is so ironclad and that it's so tough that it'll lock up, it'll do everything but hang brothers for jaywalking. Don't believe me? I'll play it for you right now.
Let me tell you what is in the bill, and I'll let you all decide whether or not this is weak. Let me get down here a compendium of the things that are in the bill. One, the death penalty. It provides 53 death penalty offenses. Weak as can be, you know? We do everything but hang people for jaywalking in this bill. That's weak stuff.
I'm going to play that one more time. Maybe to you, it might not sound like much, but to me, that speaks volumes. I'm going to play that one more time. It's only about 45 seconds. Bear with me.
Let me tell you what is in the bill, and I'll let you all decide whether or not this is weak. Let me get down here a compendium of the things that are in the bill. One, the death penalty. It provides 53 death penalty offenses. Weak as can be, you know? We do everything but hang people for jaywalking in this bill. That's weak stuff.
Like I said, there is no criminal justice system to reform without Joe Biden. You see, throughout the 80s as well as the 90s and really his entire career, but we focus much more on the 1988 crime bill because of the way in which the disparities were in between having crack cocaine versus having powder cocaine. You see, black folks in the 80s were using crack cocaine and white folks were using powder cocaine. And as many of you already know, I don't have to explain it to you, but I will for those of you who are new to this kind of information. In 1988, Joe Biden, when he wrote up that crime bill, he made it a point to make sure that if you got caught with crack cocaine, the penalties were significantly higher for you, meaning black, than it would be if you had powder cocaine, which is what white people use. You see, when you needed help the most, when black folks needed rehabilitation, they needed treatment, they needed rehab, they needed assistance, they needed help. The same way a lot of white folks need all that today with this opioid crisis that's going on. They're getting it. When you needed it, Joe Biden gave you jail. He made sure to lock you up away from his mother, his son, his family.
The consensus is A, we must take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. That's number one. There's a consensus on that. The Democratic chairman of the Judiciary Committee, the Democratic president of the United States of America, the Democratic attorney general, the Republican leader of this effort, Senator Hatch, the Republican senator from Texas. We all agree on that. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society. And the truth is, we don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. You're looking at the fellow who was one of the primary architects of the Sentencing Commission. You know what the basic premise of the Sentencing Commission is? I know the presiding officer knows. It was the first time in 80 years we rejected the notion that the condition of sentencing must be related to how long it would take to rehabilitate. I'm the guy that said rehabilitation, when it occurs, we don't understand it and notice it. And even when we notice it and we know it occurs, we don't know why. So you cannot make rehabilitation a condition for release. That's why in our system, there's the federal system, you serve 85% of your time. I remember when it was going on, when I was making these arguments in the late 70s, they used to call it Biden's same time for the same crime provision. It's a shame, but we don't know how to rehabilitate. But there is a consensus, and I will cease. A, we must make the streets safer. I don't care why someone is a malfactor in society. I don't care why someone is antisocial. I don't care why they become a sociopath. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society, try to help them, try to change their behavior. That's why we do in this bill. We have drug treatment and we have other treatments to try to deal with it. But they are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families.
You see that? When you needed help the most, Joe Biden made sure to lock you up. Now, when his folks need help, they get treatment. This opioid crisis going on that's been happening for about a year, 2, 3 now. I don't see any new crime bills. I don't see anybody getting hard on crime. I don't see anybody getting tough on the drug trade that's happening with this opioids going all around everywhere. Because white folks being affected, not you. But when you were the one being affected, you got jail. He's sitting there in that video talking about how he wished that there was something that we can do as it pertains to rehabilitation. We just don't know. But now all of a sudden in 2020, you know what to do? No, you don't. You're playing games. You think black folks are stupid. And unfortunately, there's a lot of us that have drank the Kool-Aid. But fortunately, from what I've gathered, it's a lot of the older Black Americans as opposed to the younger ones. Now, lastly, I want to get to this last point right here. And I'm going to pull this video up. And it's just something for you to think about and for you to meditate on right before you get ready to vote. All right. The last thing that I want you to think and meditate on is that it's only black folks. Let me bring it back. It's only when you're running for president or vice president or any other electoral position that you see when someone supposedly is black is running, like Kamala Harris or former President Barack Obama. You ever notice how when they're running for president, all of a sudden they have to make this public declaration that they're not going to do anything for black people? You don't see that with other groups. If an LGBTQ man is running for president, he stands proudly on the fact that he's going to do X, Y, and Z for the LGBTQ community. If a Hispanic man is running for president, he stands proudly on the fact that he's Hispanic and that he's going to do X, Y, and Z concerning immigration. If a female is running for president, whether it's Hillary Clinton or you have Kamala Harris as vice president, they run proudly on the fact that when we get into office, we're going to do X, Y, and Z for women. But when it comes to black folks, like many of you have seen already, we get this.
Why not target the African American community? Why not say then, this is for you? This is for African Americans. If there was a banking crisis, then you target money for the banks. If there was a national disaster, you target your money for the national for disaster relief.
That's not how America works.
So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No.
Do you ever see this with any other group? When have you ever seen this? When have you ever heard of that? You literally, when you're running for the highest position in this country, whether you're selected to be vice president or you're possibly going to be president, you have seen consistently now both so-called black candidates make it a point to make a public declaration that they will do nothing that's going to directly benefit or exclusively benefit black people. It never happens the other way around. So with all that being said, what are you actually voting for? We've covered the fact that they don't support reparations for the descendants of American slavery. They don't support any type of black agenda that is exclusively for black Americans to address the issues and the ills that we deal with in our community. They're sitting here talking to you about criminal justice reform when the man that's running for president, Joe Biden, is the heartbeat of mass incarceration. And then as we complete this video, you're seeing that it's only so-called black candidates that make a public declaration to do nothing for black people. So once again, you're voting Democrat because of what? The lesser of two evils? There's no such thing as a lesser of two evils. Evils is evils. But if we were going to play the lesser of two evils, it for sure wouldn't be Donald Trump. It would be Joe Biden. All the stuff that I mentioned earlier about the racial wealth gap skyrocketing and the prison population skyrocketing, and the fact that by 2053, the average net worth, the average worth of a black family is going to be zero. That's the projection. By 2053, the average wealth of black folks will be zero. That has nothing to do with Donald Trump. He inherited all that. That doesn't have anything to do with him. Don't get it twisted. I don't really care for the guy. I don't like him. I think he's an idiot. Sticks his foot in his mouth too much. He's kind of dumb, being honest. But that stuff that I just mentioned, that has nothing to do with him. He didn't do any of that. Now, if you're talking about who did it, it's the system of racism and white supremacy as a whole concerning this government. But you know who didn't do anything about it? The Democrats that you've been consistently voting for. getting nothing in return since 1964. They've done nothing. And if you talk to brothers like Antonio Moore, one of the co-founders of ADOS movement, he'll show and prove to you that Barack Obama actually expanded the racial wealth gap. He'll show that to you with the data. When Obama was in office, he actually expanded it. The white wealth under Barack Obama skyrocketed while yours continued to plummet. So with all that being said, I'm not going to hold you all any longer because I said I didn't want to make this video long. I want to thank you all for joining me today. And because it is a live stream, you know what I got to do. I did see some people in the, I did see like I think one person in the super chat. Let me check. I see somebody else also donated via Cash App. And earlier before, oh, I got another Cash App, so thank you. And earlier, I believe that there was someone who joined the Patreon before I went live. So you know what comes with that, my little special thank you video. If you've caught my lives before, you know why I'm smiling. So as a thank you to everybody who has donated and who has contributed to this channel, this is for you all right here.
Donations, 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 gifts, 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 more gifts, more gifts.
And for the sisters who may have donated, I didn't catch the name, so I don't know how many brothers and sisters, men or women, actually donated. But for the sisters, I got something for you too.
Before I continue with my message, thank you, Sister Avanti, $10 coming on the Cash App. Thank you, sister. Next time, make it 20, but thank you for that 10. I know you barely had that. Thank you, sister. Before I continue.
Shout out to Umar the Goat Johnson, man, the king of donations. And with all that being said, I want to thank you all for watching today's show, man. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. Make sure you text tdhiphop to number 33222. That's tdhiphop to number 33222. That way you'll get a direct text notification whenever I release a new video, but it also serves as a protection plan for myself. So in case YouTube ever gives this channel the axe, I'll be able to send you a direct link to where you can find me next. Also, excuse me, Jesus, I thought I can go a whole show without that happening. There we go. Also, all social media links will be pinned in the comment section below. And if I haven't pinned it in there yet, they will be in the description. And lastly, but certainly not least, as I always say, for those of you who have been subscribed to this channel for quite some time now, have a love and appreciation for the work that I put in on this channel. The number one way you can show your support to me is through Patreon for only $5 a month. That helps put me in position to be able to take TD Hip Hop Media off of YouTube. Remember, the goal is not to grow big on YouTube, but to grow independent of YouTube. And until the next video, peace. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate you all very much.